Welcome to the Healthcare Technology Report, a leading information source on healthcare technology companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Yann Gaston-Mathé, co-founder and CEO of Iktos, a company building AI and robotics tools for small molecule drug discovery. Iktos offers Makya for generative molecular design and Spaya for retrosynthesis, alongside an AI-driven robotics platform that automates synthesis to accelerate the design, make, test, analyze cycle. The company also works in collaboration with pharma partners and is developing an in-house pipeline targeting oncology and autoimmune and inflammatory diseases. Yann has spent more than 2 decades across pharma R&D, data analytics, and biotech entrepreneurship. He leads Iktos' strategy and product development, drawing on experience spanning pharmaceutical research, consulting, and multiple company building efforts. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Yann, thank you so much for taking the time. Delight to be with you.
Yeah, same pleasure. Thank you.
Thought we could kick off with what Iktos does, where it's focused in this generative AI space within drug discovery. And then from there, we'll go a little bit into the background or the history of the company. But let's start at present day, what it does.
Yes, of course. So Iktos is a company which essentially uses AI technology, more specifically generative AI, to help design novel molecules, novel chemical matter that would be active on a biological target, and then help optimize those compounds from lead to optimize lead potential preclinical candidates, with the goal ultimately of accelerating the drug discovery process, make it more efficient, faster, more cost effective essentially than what it is today. And I would say our major differentiation compared to many other AI companies, and maybe we can go more into that, is the fact that we combine actually AI technologies for drug design with lab automation technology for automated synthesis, enabling very fast and cheap access to variable compounds. And with the idea that you should not only use AI to identify interesting compounds, but also be able to have those compounds in the lab to be tested as soon as possible, and really address one of the key bottlenecks in the process, which is the fact that currently in the drug discovery industry, where compounds are still made by hand, by bench chemists, the same way they were made 100 years ago. And we are not really leveraging robots or automation as much as we could. So that's essentially, what we are doing at Iktos.
In the way you deliver the solution, this combination of, robotics in the lab, as well as the SaaS solution through I think it's named Makya.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an AI company, which also has developed and is running their own wet lab. So, when we do drug discovery, either in-house projects or collaborative projects, at the same time, we are in the in silico world, having medicinal chemists and computational chemists designing compounds using our AI software, Makya and Spaya. But then we also make those compounds thanks to our automated synthesis platform, so that we can, again, get them, faster to be tested. So we do have dual business models, one of them being, the drug discovery partnerships, essentially partnering with pharma companies to help them expedite the drug discovery on their targets. The second one being more the software, because we do sell software as a service business model.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so in some cases, it could be the software is bought by pharma companies on a standalone basis.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, when they get the software, they don't get access to the robotic platform to make the compounds. We are not providing some kind of on-demand chemistry service, but we do have, medicinal chemists and computational chemists in pharma companies in Europe, in the US, and also in Japan. We use our software to help them essentially in their work to design new compounds. Absolutely, yeah.
And when a pharma company is using the software, are they then importing their own data?
Yeah, they do import their own data. Of course, this data is, on forbidden grounds. We'll never look at it or use it, even less. And that's very clear from the start. We don't use the data for customers, but they trust us essentially to kind of manage the data in a secure way. We run it on AWS. It's kind of a market practice today, and it goes okay.
And can you give us a sense for the extent to which your software has been deployed out to pharma? I think you work with some of the largest companies out there.
Yeah, we do. And unfortunately, I'm not necessarily able to reveal the name of the companies
Yeah.
who are currently using the software. But we have, I think since the beginning of the platform, we've had about 20 customers for software. It's growing. And we also have the retrosynthesis AI software, Spaya, which is also used by quite a number of companies, including some very big US pharma companies. So we have a nice footprint, although, of course, it's constant effort to increase our market share and develop the adoption of the technology. These are new technologies which require significant change management and also integration with existing tools. So it's not as easy as it might seem, but we will make progress, absolutely.
We'd like to get a sense for when you started the company and if this was the solution you started out with. You were trying to solve this problem of accelerating drug discovery.
Yes, so actually we were among the first groups to start developing generative AI for molecular design. And when the two co-founders of the company, the two other co-founders, I was the third one in the chronological order, Nicolas, who had a PhD in AI, and Quentin, who's a chemist, started working together and started, fantasizing on it would be great to have an AI technology which could generate interesting molecules, which chemists would like to make because they would have higher probability of meeting their success criteria in their discovery program. It was nothing like this existed. But at the time, the first deep generative models had been published maybe a few months before. There were applications in natural language processing, like translation, and also in image processing and form. So it was the very beginnings. And, of course, looking back now, like almost 10 years later, so much has changed in the world. It's very hard to imagine. But when we started, there were very, very limited applications of AI. It was essentially deep learning was mostly used for predictive modeling. The generative AI, the word did not exist. It came out a few years later. We were using the term deep generative models at the time. So what happened is that Nicolas, our CTO, got the idea to train a deep generative model on a large database of molecules. And the molecules can be represented as SMILES, which essentially is a way to encode the chemical structure with a sequence of characters. So it's like natural language. So we said, okay, maybe if I train a deep generative model that processes natural language on this database of molecules, it will learn the chemistry and it will be able to generate novel molecules. So we did this and it started working. And then he said, well, that the next thing would be interesting to guide in a way this generative model with reinforcement learning to provide some kind of reward, enabling essentially the generative model not to generate random molecules, but to generate molecules which will have higher scores on the fitness functions that are of interest for a specific application. And that was the beginning of Iktos, essentially. They came up with this idea. Nothing like that was described in the literature at the time, so it was very, very new. And they told me about the idea. They wanted to create a company. Got me quite excited. And myself, I had a pharma background. I'd been working in pharma in France for many years, was very familiar with the challenges of drug discovery. So yeah, it was super exciting, this new technology and the potential. And we decided to team up to create Iktos. What's interesting is that just a few weeks after we incorporated Iktos, at the very beginning, we still had no money, nothing. The first academic paper describing works which was very similar to works of Nicolas and Quentin was published in ChemArchive. And we knew that we would need to kind of accelerate, our efforts to make this as a real company, or it would be too late. And it was actually a good thing because it enabled us to really put more efforts into the project and to do something with the company. And then there was a lot of interest from pharma companies in these new technologies, and which enabled us to get some early collaborations from some pretty well-established pharma companies. At the beginning, yes, the plan was really to develop more SaaS business. Our diagnosis was that pretty soon after, the first papers came out with the open source community, releasing code and so on and so forth, the technology was going to be available to pharma companies, but that does not mean that it's usable, that it's fit for purpose, industry context, or that it's very easy to use by non-computational scientists, chemists essentially, whose job it is to design molecules. They need some software which is very easy to use and practical and professional software. And we thought, okay, here there would be a need for this kind of new generation of drug design software, and would be the first one with our Makya platform. So that was the plan originally.
And today, from a company perspective, strategically, where are you most focused on growing? Is it more so, partnering with more pharma companies? Is it kind of working with your existing partners and expanding those relationships? Is it on the product side? I'm sure it's a mix of all of it, but where are you most focused?
Yeah, so we've kind of came to understand after some point that there is probably more value to be created in drug discovery than in selling the technology for many reasons, most of them being related to the fact that many pharma companies have their own internal scientist team who like to do stuff and to develop their own pipelines and so on and so forth, and also with having to do with the fact that the cultural change in the medicinal chemistry community to adapt new ways of working using AI rather than traditional tools for design still will take a long time. And another aspect is that, of course, in this business, the value is in the assets, the compounds that, preclinical candidate, phase one compound, et cetera, et cetera. This is where the value grows. And there are always limitations in the budgets available for drug discovery, especially in the software side. Whereas, of course, if you are successful in delivering a compound which can become a blockbuster a few years down the line, of course, there is more value there. And also, of course, because of the nature of the company, we are not a company which is 100% technology driven. We are also a company which is passionate about drug discovery. At the very beginning, Quentin is a chemist, our CSO is a chemist, and around us, we hired a team of computational chemists, medicinal chemists, drug hunters. So we are really, passionate about that. And because of this kind of dual culture, we also wanted to have an impact in terms of concretely delivering good compounds in drug discovery programs. So for that reason, we decided to progressively shift our priorities, I would say, more towards partnerships in drug discovery. And at the same time, we don't see ourselves as a potential biotech in the making, which would develop their own pipeline in the clinic and essentially yearn to, at some point, develop an asset in clinical trials and potentially exit when the asset succeeds in clinical trials. Because we are a platform company for drug discovery, it makes a lot of sense to work where we are good, and we are good at essentially discovering new drugs, not at developing them. We don't have the capabilities, we don't have the capital, we don't have the expertise. The risk profile is very different. And we like to be focused on what we know how to do best, which is essentially, again, discovering new drugs. So really, this is now our real focus. And all the more so as since we started developing this concept of combining generative AI for generating new molecules with automated synthesis, enabling to make them fast on robots, the best way essentially to demonstrate the value of the platform is to use it, and to use it in real drug discovery programs. And also this platform, obviously, is costly to use it, to make it profitable. So naturally, in a way, we have shifted more towards drug discovery and mostly through partnerships rather than in-house programs. Although we do have our own targets, and we aim essentially to do the discovery work and then to partner the assets to pharma companies who are interested in continuing the development. Yeah.
Excellent. We're coming up on time. I have two final questions, but before I ask those, I just want to touch on your background because you had started out in more corporate as well as consulting. Did you ever foresee yourself, running your own company?
Yeah, I think it's not like pure random and pure chance. It's the reason I ended up as an entrepreneur and a founder and CEO of a company is because I was not as happy as maybe I could have been in the big corporate companies. So it took me some time to realize it, but after 17 years working in pharma and in consulting, it was really my goal to create my own company or to be part of a founding team. So definitely this was the direction I had taken when I was fortunate enough to meet Quentin and Nicolas, and when they asked me to join their team, definitely.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
I would say certainly my grandfather, who was a medical oncologist and who was a pioneer in research in oncology between the 1950s and the 1980s. Essentially, he was someone who was, of course, very important to me because he was a very close relative and who had also had a huge impact on medicine, on oncology. And so, yeah, I would say if I had to name someone, that would be him.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Ah, I honestly, no, I don't have I don't have any I
Yeah.
don't have any good answer for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's frequently the case where entrepreneurs are devoting all their time to their company, which is, rightfully so. And this is a cause in and of itself, is drug discovery.
Yeah, I mean, running like a startup company is a constant fight. It absorbs 100% of your thoughts, and already keeping time to be with your family and spending quality time with them, not so easy.
Yes.
And I will
Yes.
say, yeah, unfortunately, you don't have a lot of focus on other topics. Yeah.
Well, understanding that your time is scarce, thank you for spending a little bit of it with us. Jan, I want to thank you again. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you very much, RJ. Bye bye.